I think frugality drives innovation just like other constraints do. One of the only ways to get out of a tight box is to invent your way out of these. Words from Jeff Bezos will echo with my guest today, a man who's invented and innovated his way to building profitable brands from commodities. A self-confessed lifelong learner, Harsh Mariwala's journey is unique in many ways. But perhaps what stands out the most given his peer set is his ability to step back and hand over the steering wheels of the company that he built over 3 decades to a professional, and in doing so, he believes he stayed true to his rule that the organization comes first.
Sometimes you win, sometimes you don't lose. You always learn. The family promoter thinks that he knows it all, that he has to be in control, And I think that's wrong, and that his children has to follow him,
Was the conversation that you had with your son about the decision that you took probably one of the hardest things that you've done?
With my son as with my wife, yeah. It was tough. Socially also, when you go out, how come you didn't appoint your son? At that time, he was not fully ready. I am completely against jugaad, because jugaad is coming out of a certain necessity, but it cannot be scaled up. India cannot be
a jugaad
nation.
What are the non-negotiables when you acquire a company?
Each acquisition has to be read differently. In some of the D2C brands, we have allowed the promoter to continue. So it's important to be flexible when you acquire.
It's interesting that you talk about emotional connect as one of the things that you've incorporated now into culture.
So I used to hear from many of my colleagues who had joined from outside, oh, this company, there is so much of bureaucracy, there is politicking, there is backbiting, there is gossiping. Because a lot of workplace pressure, a lot of workplace mental health issues can be tackled if you have the right culture. A right culture where there is high degree of openness. If I have to say something to you, I don't like something about you, I should be able to tell you on your face.
What is it if you don't know about your dad? See, now.
He'll write down the minute details of things that he has to do.
Really?
Yeah, it'll be
he has a diary or something?
Yeah, like a daily sheet, and he's got real bad handwriting, only you can understand. He write it down and then he'll erase it, or he start tearing those pieces. His best buddy on the golf course is his caddy, the guy who carries his thing. All his golfing buddies know that
he's a keeper of all secrets,
exactly,
isn't it?
Exactly.
Sir, you can come in.
Okay.
What is the best piece of advice that you've given him? You think, in your view, and I'll ask him what he thinks is the best piece of advice.
He will not like it, but I think he was in Dubai for the last 4 or 5 years. And I told him to come back.
Come back home. So was that a contentious decision?
It was.
It was?
Very.
Yeah. So you wanted him back and you didn't want to come back.
Correct. But I said, all the
pretty
businesses,
much like your father, right? You wanted to do an MBA, he didn't want you to study abroad.
That's very different.
How different are the two of you?
Very different, I think. I'm not. I think he's more what I call a 5-star army general. With discipline, structure, punctuality. I'm more of an investor, so I enjoy, living vicariously through other entrepreneurs and seeing their journeys.
Joining me today to talk about his mantra for success, scale, innovation and well-being is the man himself, Harsh Mariwala. Many thanks for joining us here on The Leadership Language. It's a pleasure to have you join us here on the program today.
Thank you, Shirin, and thank you for having me over in this program. So I'm delighted and thrilled.
This wall here perhaps encapsulates the many mantras that you've lived by or used to drive Marico. But there was one that I saw there on the extreme right, which said that faith is when you take the first step before having the ability to see the full staircase. And that's what I want to start with. Your ability to let go. Your ability to step back, hand over the reins of the company that you built as a first-generation entrepreneur. And I say first-generation entrepreneur because you didn't do what your family business was doing. How hard was that? Because this is not usual.
So, very good question, Shirin. And I think if you look at Indian businesses, there is an expectation that your children will step into your shoes in terms of the role. My son also thought that he will step in. My wife also thought that he will step into my shoes. But I deviated from the normal practice of putting my son in my role. And I did it because of one, I used the thumb rule, and that's the thumb rule I always use. There are always conflicts between an organization's interest and any stakeholder's interests, whether it is the promoters or the employees. And the key thing which thumb rule, the organization interest comes first.
Yeah.
And that's the thumb rule I use when Shougata, who was the current managing director, came to me and asked me whether is there an opportunity for him to play or to become the MD, because that's his ambition. And I discussed that with my board at that time, and the board felt that, yes, I had steered the company for many, many years. I founded the company, and now it was time for me to step down and give him the reins. And most promoters think that they know it all, and there is nobody better than them. And I disagree with that. There are always individuals you can find, and you should try and find who could be better than me. So I was not expecting this from my personal time spent, because I can't relax. I don't know
how to relax.
The habit of doing nothing, I cannot just not do anything. I have to be occupied on a perpetual basis. And my wife and I discussed with her saying, you are not sitting at home. So it was very clear that I'm going to go to work, even if I step down. And it's almost now 11 years I've stepped down. It's been a very good decision, because at one level, it has helped me do a lot of things which I never thought I would do. So for me, every moment is different. Whether it is a new business I've started, or whether I'm helping my son in his own business, or philanthropic issues, or on boards, or writing a book, or speaking at various events. So my diary is full, and I still spend time on the business, but it's about 20%, 25%. I manage the board. The CSR part of Marico Innovation Foundation reports to me directly, because I wanted the managing director to concentrate more on the business. So that reports to me directly. But I went through a lot of struggle in terms of the decision itself. What will I do? What will I tell my family? And of course, my wife and my son were unhappy that I did this. And socially also, when you go out, how come you didn't appoint your son? At that time, he was not fully ready. And I decided to take this step. But as I said, it's worked out well. It's worked out well for the organization. Our overall valuations have gone up. And the most important thing is my son has started a new business, which if he had stepped into my shoes, he would not have started. And the best thing is that the business is done well. So now he can claim that this is my baby. And our equations have improved dramatically over a period of time. At one point, we were like, not adversaries, but we had our own set of frustrations in dealing with each other. But now we are completely aligned. And now I am grooming him to take over Marico chairmanship from me over a period of time.
In hindsight, the decision worked out.
Yes.
But at that point in time, when Shougata had that conversation with you and said, look, my ambition is to become the managing director, you could have very well said, and I know that you were not ready to give up at that point in time. What made you say that this is the right thing to do for the organization, knowing fully well that you wouldn't have the buy-in of the family, you wouldn't have the buy-in of your son and your wife and others?
So I think two things. One is we had to retain him. If he had not given him that role, he would have left. And he had made it very clear that he is ambitious, and which is fair. I think every person has their own ambition, and if that ambition is not fulfilled by the current organization, then that person should leave. So he would have definitely left. And I think he was a very prized asset in terms of his capabilities. So we had to retain him. Number two, the company also needed a new set of thinking. And I think that also came in, because I think they say you have to change the CEO, the leader, every 10, 15 years. But here in this case, I had built the business from scratch, and I was managing the business from the time its inception, for 30, 40 years. So it needed a new lens. So I think, and then the board also felt that I should do this. So I think a combination of these three made me take that step. But I think more important thing is after that taking a step, the board said that you promoted him, but there is a tendency amongst most promoters to interfere on a day-to-day basis. So the MD on paper is not empowered. There is constant interference and
the backseat driving.
Correct. So the board wanted to avoid that, and they asked me to have a statement in terms of role clarity. What will I do? What I want to do? What will the MD do? What he want to do? And when will he come to me for decisions? So the document is so much in detail.
Did you draw it up?
We jointly drew it up. I drew it on my own. He drew it on his own. We exchanged notes, and it's working wonderfully well. So things like I will not participate in any investor meetings. I will not do anything, any PR about Marico per se. I will talk about macro issues, about my own journey, but Marico related PR I will not part. So that's his baby because he's managing that business. I will not go into day-to-day functioning at all, but there are certain things I will manage, like the culture of the organization. Like I'll do skip level meetings. I will interview people who are going to report to him. I will have review meetings every month, but most of my work will be done through the review meetings of 2 hours, and not on day-to-day basis interference. Some of the acquisitions, key decisions will come to me. So it's worked wonderfully well.
I think part of why promoters hold on well beyond they need to, well beyond perhaps in a crude way, their expiry date, is to stay relevant. I think the fear of being irrelevant often drives, and ego drives the decision to stay in the seat, to stay in the saddle. Was that a concern for you?
Not really, because I'm staying relevant because I still do a lot of outside, and I go market visits, which is not a day-to-day work. So I get my inputs from there. I read a lot.
You still go on market visits?
Yeah, I still go on. Once a month I go on market visits. I interact with the customers, shopper behaviors and things like that. So I do all that. I review meetings at all our international locations once a year. Just 2 days back I went to R&D. So once in 6 months we have a review meeting with R&D. So there is structured involvement, not day-to-day basis. Nothing comes to me for decision. And I think the biggest problem with most promoters is that ego, which is driven by the fact that they think that they know it all, which should not be. You should, because the organization will have to continue on a long-term basis, even when you're not there. And I believe in perpetuity of an organization. I don't believe that the business is to be built and then sold. And I'm not the serial entrepreneur type. So if that organization has to last much beyond me, you have to create certain values, culture, talent, and I think that can only come in when you start delegating, empowering people.
Was the conversation that you had with your son about the decision that you took probably one of the hardest things that you've done?
It was tough with me, for my wife, with my son as with my wife. It was tough.
How did you repair that relationship?
So I think over a period of time, things just
fell into place. He
started doing well. So it got accepted initially. That acceptance is still, at that time it was hard, but over a period of time that...
one of the other things that is often associated with you is the focus on what is called frugal innovation. And I don't know how you describe what frugal innovation means to you or what it's meant to you through the course of your journey and through the evolution of Marico. But, when you look back at how your journey shaped, the role of the kind of innovation that you decided to focus on, would you attribute Marico's success in large measure to that?
So if you look at our own journey from the time we started, and much before Marico, also at part of Bombay Oil Industries, when I started our Parachute and Saffola brands and scaled it up over a period of time, the most important times when we had a massive spike in our sales or market shares was when some innovation succeeded. And mind you, many innovations have failed, so everything doesn't succeed. But that just reinforced in me the need to innovate on a perpetual basis, because you'll innovate. It's a matter of time others will copy. You're bound to copy, which is fine. But you have to be 2 steps ahead of others. So you have to continuously go on innovating. And my belief in innovation just went on getting reinforced. So the frugal innovation sometimes is mistaken for the jugaad. I am completely against jugaad, because jugaad is coming out of a certain necessity, but it cannot be scaled up. India cannot be
a jugaad nation.
Jugaad nation. I mean, it's okay. You're taking some shortcuts, but that's fine. It's good to talk about it, good stories, making lassi in a washing machine and whatnot, but nothing beyond that. So, but I was very clear that we had to make Marico an innovative organization on a perpetual basis. And that can only come in when you create a culture of innovation, where innovation is thought by each and every person within the organization. Each person thinks, what can I do it differently? Each person is willing to experiment, doesn't have the fear of failure, because the biggest deterrent to innovation is the fear of failure. You don't want to take a risk. What will happen if I fail? So you have to give an assurance to your talent that it's okay to fail. Many experiments will not succeed, but it's okay, because you can't go on determining your future journey based on market research. There is no shortcut to actually testing your product in the market.
You're not a big believer in market research?
I'm not a big believer. Yes, you're right. But sometimes market research is just done to confirm your certain thoughts. You can't arrive at a strategy-based market research. I'm not in favor of. But yeah, if you have certain thinking, you may just confirm that, okay, market, and then say, okay, this is my thinking. It's getting confirmed by this research. But you can't say, I want to do a market thing on, launch a product based on market research. That I'm not. I think that can only be done through consumer insighting, which is different than market research. You have to actually go and meet the consumers on your own and go deep into consumers' mind in terms of what's the latent need which is missing at the consumer. And whether it's health related or whether it is beauty related, we are seeing certain trends in the environment coming in from either from developed countries or now from a lot of from Korea also. You can see skincare, food coming in from Korea. You have to continuously keep track of those trends and try and find out what will work with the Indian customers.
So on the back of consumer insights that you got from interacting with consumers, from the visits that you did, over the course of the journey, what would you say have been some of the most significant innovations that you made, that you decided to bet on, that changed the trajectory of the company, and those that you thought would work but actually failed?
Yeah. So if you look at a brand like Parachute, we just started with coconut oil, and then at that time it was in tins. We converted the whole market in plastics. We again rolled out all the innovations in Bangladesh. In that market, we have 80% market share. And then we used the property of coconut to go into other skin, hair care products. So I think that's the whole journey of Parachute and its extension. And now we are seeing it at a global opportunity in terms of leveraging coconut as a superfood. In other developed markets. Hair oiling in other countries also is catching on in developed markets. So can we tap that opportunity? So through the Parachute brand name is something which has evolved quite a lot. And similarly with Saffola, started with oils, we went into blended oils, and now we have cold pressed oils also, and then into foods also. So we've gone to oats, masala oats. We have a whole range of Saffola honey, Saffola muesli. So I think leveraging those brands into related areas through extensions has played an important role, But we failed also. We thought we launched fabric softeners, and we launched it at that time. I'm talking of 30 years back. We were too ahead of our times.
Yeah.
Now the fabric softener market is caught on, but we launched it. So timing also plays a very important role in terms of when to launch. And you do it too prematurely, and then the market is not ready.
Yeah.
So the right timing is, now it's become a big category.
As you look at where Marico finds itself today, and the market has changed, consumer habits have changed, consumer behavior has changed.
Yes.
What excites you about the opportunity, but also what worries you about the change that you're seeing?
So I think you are absolutely right that the consumer habits are changing very fast. Earlier there was to be brands which were for family, then became quite personal. And in terms of marketing language, we used to call it segmentation. Now there is micro segmentation with the emergence of D2C brands. So there is a huge discontinuity because of technology, because of consumer habits. And I think you have to look at it from two windows. What is the threat to your organization? You have to protect that. And what is the opportunity arising out of those discontinuities? And I'll just give you an example of D2C brands. FMCG as a sector is perceived to be very defensive because you needed big money to create a brand through television, through press. And the kind of budgets you needed to launch a national product would be in upwards of 20 crores. You needed a huge distribution network to tap into all of India. in rural area and going to millions of outlets. Very difficult for any newcomer to get that, to spend that money unless one is willing for a huge long-term sacrifice. So in a way, we were in a cocoon where we didn't see any new competition coming in.
Yeah.
Come all of a sudden D2C brands and
the competitive landscape has changed.
Changed completely. You can do digital marketing. Your budgets could be 1/10 of the FMCG budgets. You can go
Use
through
social
marketplaces, social media. Then you go to Amazon, e-commerce initiatives. Now Q-commerce come in. So all of a sudden, because those entry barriers going away. So there are two ways of looking at it. As I said, one is threat. So how do you protect your current businesses? Of course, you take whatever action is needed. But more importantly, what are the opportunities arising out of D2C threats? So we acquired 4 brands in the last 3 years.
Yeah.
And today, annualized turnover of those 4 brands are upwards of 1,000 crores. All of them have scaled up very well. But we have managed that very differently because the mindset required to manage a D2C brand is very different than the mindset required to manage an FMCG brand. So different team, much younger, very digital savvy, small budgets, a lot of fast reaction time.
So they're islands within the Marico universe.
Yes. And I'm glad we did it that way because if you had combined with the FMCG marketing, it would have not worked out because they have abundance in terms of budgets. Here you have frugality in terms of the budgets and the way you work, very, very fast pace of action. And we also have our own D2C brands.
Yeah.
So I'm just giving, so this was a threat and we turned it into opportunity. I think we may be the most, if you look at all the FMCG companies, we may be the most aggressive in terms of acquisitions, in terms of number of brands we acquired.
So do you believe that given the landscape that you see today, as well as the fast-paced changes, that building is perhaps harder to do versus buying? Do you think that it's easier to buy your way to market share or build your way to market share and new categories?
So I think you're talking about acquisitions, which is, and I strongly believe in growth, okay? So growth has to be the most fundamental part of any organization. Growth has to be sustainable, it has to be profitable. And acquisitions, sometimes, many companies think that acquisition is very sexy because it gets talked about.
Yeah.
You get a lot of visibility. But I think you should be clear why you're acquiring a brand. Is it to get into new category? Is it to consolidate your market share? Is it to enter a new country? So we've made something like 25 acquisitions. And I think overall our success rate in acquisitions is much, much higher than the perceived success rate of overall global acquisition success rate. They say is roughly about 30%. And failure rate is 70%. In our case, it's more than 80% is successful. Because we are very clear why we are acquiring. Not to answer your question whether it should we look at organic or inorganic growth, I think you have to pursue both. You can't just say, I will only look at acquisition because you may not get an acquisition. Or you may get an acquisition which may be very, very expensive and you may not want to pay that kind of price. So you just can't say, I think organizations have to look at organic, inorganic, because once you acquire a company, again, it has to go through an organic route of expansion.
Exactly.
So organic capabilities have to be there. In some of the D2C brands, we have allowed the promoter to continue. So it's important to be flexible when you acquire. You can't say everything I want from day one. Because if I told that promoter that please sell 100%, they would never ever agree. They want to continue participating in that journey for 2-3 years. They want to see an upside. And also have patience when you integrate acquisitions. You just can't behave like a cowboy that day one you acquire a company and start changing because that company has certain strengths, certain people strengths also. And you can't just create that fear in the people that, okay, we are going to change everything. You have to go deeper and then, of course, over a period of time, what's not working well, you have to change. But you can't from day one start changing things. The other thing which we say is that governance play very important. Some of the companies we acquired had very bad governance. On that, we will not compromise.
And that brings me to the question on culture, because I know that you see yourself as the custodian of the culture that you've helped create and build here at Marico. And culture is not just compliance with what the regulation wants you to do or mandates you to do. It's much more than that. Why has culture meant so much to you from the very start. I know
Yeah.
that you believe from day zero that
Yes.
governance should be part of your preamble,
Yes.
as a company. What made you so conscious of that?
I don't know what made me conscious, but maybe a lot of reading. I read a lot. So because of those readings, I got a little bit more influence for the need to build a strong culture. And because of the innovations which succeeded prior to formation of Marico, I wanted to build a very strong culture of innovation. So how do you create a culture of innovation was the biggest challenge. So I wrote down a lot of thoughts on my own and shared with my team at that time. I'm talking of early 90s, where culture was not talked about. And they took a very positive response. Then I went to a consultant from Delhi, Dr. Mrityunjay Atreya, and with his help, we internalized the culture. I went and talked to people, but culture doesn't start, starting point was me. Ultimately, it has to be owned by the whole organization.
Yeah.
And the top leadership has to play a very important role. If they say that this is MD's culture, I don't agree with it. It's a disaster. I don't want to paste our values in the reception, and down the line, people say that this is not the organization which it is. It has to be
It has to be
exactly
lived.
based on, it has to be lived. And for that living to happen, the top management, the senior management has to set an example. So there is a lot of in-depth, shall I say, attention given to culture, because ultimately in any organization, strategy plays an important. Strategy and culture has to fit in with each other. Culture has to help strategy.
So how different is that handwritten code of conduct that you took to Professor Atre? How much of that has been translated into actual reality over the course of the last 3 decades?
Good question. I think over a period of time, cultural values, there may be a need to change because the business has changed. Those days, there was no digital, the agility was not there. So every 10, 15 years, we look at our values and change the values. Some of the new values which have come in to do with agility, to do with emotional connect, to reduce bureaucracy. So to have a global mindset, because we went global at that time, we were only Indian company. So you have to relook at what has the business gone into and what are the new needs.
It's interesting that you talk about emotional connect as one of the things that you've incorporated now into culture. Why is that?
See, some of the new things through COVID, we realized that the need to emotional connect was very high. The need to interact with people when they were living with COVID in terms of insecurity, somebody in the family, older person expiring, or so there was a lot of fear, and also realized that agility is very important, because vaccines which used to take about 10, 15 years to develop were developed within 2 years. So we can be agile. And I think we have tried to do that. Earlier our new product process was like 2 years. Now you condensed it, all that.
What did you change? What are you doing differently versus,
So I think we
versus
looked at,
previous?
so normally organizational bureaucracy slows down agility, and the need to, especially interfunctional authorization helps. So we did a study in terms of over a period of time in any organization, new processes come in, new bureaucracy comes in depending on the change of the new person who's coming into the role. So we had a review of all the processes and cut down a lot of processes, which just made things much, much faster. On top of that, the overall top management has to move fast. And sometimes perfection and agility don't go hand in hand. So depending on the issue, if you try to be very, very perfectionist, you may just spend 1 year extra. And that higher degree of perfection may not be truly relevant for your success. So you need to take a call on that person.
So you're saying time to market has to be given more significance than the perfect product to market?
Yes, because if you don't do it, somebody else will precede you, So you may be missing out on an opportunity.
Mental well-being. And I know, again, that's not something that has typically been a focus area for leaders, especially, leaders in India. Of course, post-COVID, it started to be talked about, but you've been doing it well before that. Again, why this focus, this emphasis on mental well-being? Where did that come from?
So I've never worked anywhere else, So I used to hear from many of my colleagues who had joined from outside, this company, there is so much culture, there is so much of bureaucracy, there is politicking, there is backbiting, there is gossiping. So I was like, puzzled. I said, why? And then half the time they would waste in doing all this nonsensical kind of thing just to... So if you want to get a promotion, you have to find out whom will you back in terms of leadership.
So this is happening in other companies, you're saying?
That's what I meant on hearing. And I said, I don't want to have this kind of culture in the organization. I don't want all these pressures to come in. Because a lot of workplace pressure, a lot of workplace mental health issues can be tackled if you have the right culture. A right culture where there is high degree of openness. If I have to say something to you, I don't like something about you, I should be able to tell you on your face, rather than telling 20 other people that she's like this, So try to build in the culture of openness, trust, meritocracy, empowerment, and I think that's played an important role in people enjoying this journey, and hopefully our mental health issues, because the workplace pressures are lesser. Of course, there will be some other mental health issues. It could be because of certain relationships. It could be anything. It could be some health issues in the family, but at least try and improve the mental health quotient within the organization.
But how did you make it a two-way street? Because very often leaders expressing their own vulnerabilities is not something that we see.
I know that, but I realized that when I expressed my vulnerability, I was able to get very close to my team, because they said, oh no, you've never heard any leaders talking openly about their set of issues.
What kind of issues would you talk about? Or do you talk about?
So, I can give one example. Our business got separated. I bought over stakes from two of my uncles. And we arrived at an agreement, and it was... The last step was, the agreement specified who will take over what business and what asset. And then Marico forms a larger percentage of the group assets. So I decided that me and one of my uncles was backing me, that we'll take over Marico. But the last step was the valuation. Because in many businesses, what happens is they start with valuation first, and that leads to a lot of differences. So last step in our case was valuation. And all my shares were put in escrow with the lawyers. And I and my team had arrived at certain valuation based on our own internal, and valuation was double than what we expected. So all of a sudden, my debt burden really went up. And I was so upset that, I built this company and will I lose this company? So I went through my emotional pressures with my team at that time. I remember we had gone to an off-site, where again we do use off-sites to improve our relationships and bring in openness. And I broke down in front of them. And I think that plays a very important role in terms of they feeling very bonded with me, So that just reinforced me that, okay, you can be vulnerable. And if you're doing things, and when you're not vulnerable, when you do things wrongly, when you're breaking a law, then you can't share, But when you have high degree of governance, it's okay to open up.
You talked about giving up control. And you've demonstrated that through the course of your career. But what are the deterrents that come in the way of actually giving up control? What were the demons that you had to battle with?
The biggest deterrent is the talent quality. It's the talent quality you have. Suppose a new recruit, you've taken somebody, and the quality of that or capability of that person is not there. Then you just can't empower that person, because then you are delegating, which means you are accountable for decision. You're not abdicating your responsibility. So delegation comes out of a certain confidence and trust you have in that person's capability. So initially, when I take a new person coming in, there will be high degree of involvement of mine. But the moment that person gets confident, gets trust and gets my confidence, then higher and higher empowerment will take place. So I think the biggest deterrent to giving up control or empowering people is the quality of talent and how that person is functioning, So if he is very caustic with his team, then I would be very reluctant, because then you're creating a culture of empowerment, participation. People have to enjoy working in the organization. And when you enjoy working, this work-life balance, I think it gets missed.
What does work-life balance mean to you?
You have to enjoy your work. If you rightly put it, if you enjoy your work, you don't have issues of work-life balance.
So you're not looking at your watch whether you've clocked a certain number of hours. You never did that, and you never did that for your team either.
Yeah, not at all. In fact, we have done away with musters, as used to have musters earlier, in early 90s. So you don't have to write musters. We trust you. We've done away with sick leave. If you're sick, you're sick. We don't have to you're not entitled to a sick leave or casual leave. So you're absolutely right. It has to come from within, because in today's times when, everybody can be sitting, but they can doing something on their own on their computer. Nobody will know. So no point forcing people to work hard. It has to come from within. You have to make people enjoy work. The moment people enjoy work, they will work and they will stretch themselves. And they will not have complaints of work-life balance. Of course, there will be some time in certain businesses which mean that you have to work much higher. But it cannot be on a perpetual basis, because then what happens is then you need to lead a certain lifestyle, certain habits, health, sleep, all that are equally important.
How important is that to you?
Very important.
Sleep, health.
Very important. I am wearing this gadget.
What is that?
This is Gabit.
Okay. What is your sleep score usually? What an average?
Last night was, I just started wearing this. Last night was one of the highest, 85, which is not bad.
So you were not nervous about this interview?
No, not nervous. It measured your stress score also. I can show it to you right now.
So you're not stressed?
I don't get stressed much, because if you do things right in the right way and you don't break laws and all, then you have the business which is strong enough because you're focused and you become market leaders.
So what's the Harsh Mariwala health regimen or routine? Like, what is it that you do on a daily basis? Okay,
so morning I do, I have 10 minutes of posture exercise, just 10 minutes, because I have a little weak posture in my back. And then I do 10 minutes of breathing and meditation. In the evening is my real workout time, which is 1.5 to 2 hours every day.
1.5 to 2 hours?
1.5 hours every day, minimum. So it's a combination. It varies every day. So sometimes it's Pilates, sometimes weight training, functional training, then swimming or cycling in the gym, and then play golf.
So that keeps you healthy and rejuvenates you as well.
You don't do the same thing. Otherwise, it's very boring. So every day is different. Yes, of course. I can't sleep if I don't exercise. It's like exercising to me is like having a shower every day.
As you look at the future, and I think one of the things that a lot of Indian companies are faced with today is the ambition to go global, but how do you make that into reality?
Yes.
You do have international business, 25 to 30% almost of your revenue comes from international markets. Yeah. But is that something that you believe over the next 10 years you would like to see build out even more?
Absolutely, because the overall size of the market increases. Of course, India economic story or growth story is very compelling. So you'll have to look at India as well as international, depending on opportunity. You just don't go international for the sake of going international. But where do you have a right to win is the key thing. Our international journey started with geographies where we thought we had a right to win.
Bangladesh. How do you deal with volatility, uncertainty, where you don't know what President Trump is going to tweet one day, what is going to happen in another part of the world in another day? How do you deal with uncertainty?
I think sometimes things will happen. You don't know, and they are beyond your control. You can't do anything which is happening in Bangladesh to change things there. You have to hope for the best. You have to have some action plans in terms of ensuring that your dependency on that market is reduced. So at one level, we would take that every country or wherever there is high dependency, we reduce that by expanding in some other country. But there is some high degree of risk which is beyond your control. And the other thing which we have done is in most international geographies, the talent we've recruited is local talent. I think that also helps us, So in Bangladesh, we hardly have 1 or 2 Indians. Everybody is local. So in a way, that also helps us in terms of acceptance as an organization in that country.
In terms of consumer trends and consumer behavior, what are you seeing different now when you make consumer visits and you go on these trips that you do every month, as you were pointing out? How has India changed from the 90s when you were doing these visits to where it is today?
So I think overall, as I said, from family brands where one family member would buy for the family, it become individual brands. And within individually, there is, for each part of, say, hair, there is a segmentation and micro-segmentation. There is a separate shampoo, there is
a conditioner,
there is so many things, there is a serum. So the needs have expanded into micro-segments. I think some new trends have come in, which are to do with health, immunity, natural, organic. So one has to tap those trends, and many a times it's a matter of time some of the trends which are happening in the international markets, they come to you. So can you tap those trends in advance and launch the products at the right time? But the consumer is changing, and they change faster. You are seeing now youngsters, even my 10-year granddaughter, she decides what brand she wants to buy, shampoo, water. So each individual, even at a young age, they have their own say in terms of, so to that extent, the number of customers you need to tap are much more as it is the number of families.
Are you now well versed with the 7-step routine, the 9-step routine? I don't know how many, I've run out of how many steps there are.
Yeah, it's a regime. You have to look at regime, in terms of what hair care will mean, pre-wash, oiling, wash, conditioning, post-wash, hair, straightening, serum, frizz control. There is so much more involved in the regime, 10 parts. So you have to be familiar. I think as a marketer, you should be fully aware of what the regime is.
So is a Champi part of your regime?
Champi came in, I'll tell you, because we found that especially in urban areas, amongst relatively well-to-do individuals, the oiling habit was going down because people didn't want to oil their hair and go out after shower. So it was at that post-wash they didn't want. So we had to make it a pre-wash. So you can't afford to lose your market. So how can you make it pre-wash? So then that's how we said that if you can Champi, which has the benefit of stress reduction as well as conditioning for the hair, and if you do it before shampooing, 1 hour before shampooing, your quality of hair will improve. And I think that worked well because, to that extent, we were able to convert the market from post-wash to pre-wash.
Market share. What have been some of the rules that you have adopted, not just to gain market share, but to keep market share intact? I mean, you've been a category creator, but to hold on to the lead, because as you said, there will be somebody who will come in taking your idea and perhaps even executing it better than you did. So what has been the mantra to hold market share?
So I think, first of all, who is your competitor you are losing market share to? You have to be clear about it, and you have to protect your market share, sometimes it may mean that you have to sacrifice profits, but it all depends on the context. Who the competitor, to what extent are they going to get market share? And that's what happened when Levers launched coconut oil. I'm talking of 30 years back. And then, they're much larger than us at that time, better distribution. There's a lot of fear that, what will happen? They bought Tomco, one brand, they acquired one more brand. So we decided that this is our resource generating engine. At that time, it was Parachute was forming about 70% of our turnover and more than 70% of our profits. So we were very clear that come what may, we will protect. If it needs more advertising, it needs better distribution, lower pricing, we will do it. And at that time, we were a public company, but we gave a guidance to the capital markets that please, this is our financial performance for next 1 or 2 years may not be growing in terms of profitability, but this is what we decided to do. And I think that you were able to protect our market share because we adopted that kind of a stance and we gave that guidance, and the market also luckily bought into that argument. And I say transparency plays a very important role. You have to be transparent. Even your capital markets, if you're going through a bad phase, whatever, you tell them. You have to earn their trust. The moment they earn their trust, then they are with you, saying, okay, this company is sharing their issue with us.
Speaking of lever, I want to talk about how things changed from almost having to fight off lever to then eventually going out there and acquiring a brand from lever. I mean, what was that like?
It was a great story. I think I enjoy talking about that story because at one stage we were very vulnerable. A lot of people told me that you will sell out this brand, and because Lever was desperate to buy it, they had also announced in the capital markets. A lot of fear in the organization. So we took all the steps to protect our brand, but including Uday Kotak told me to meet Karsanbhai Patel, who was at that time fighting Lever through his Nirma brand. I went and met him and concluded that we will take them on. And we know this business inside out. They are new entrants. For us, starting from me to the top team, there will be full attention given to this threat. For them, it will be some 3 layers lower than chairman will be handling that brand. and we'll take them on. And we took them on, and nothing happened to our brand, our market share. Some of our competitors lost market share. So at some stage, they started losing interest because of Unilever globalization initiatives. And then they decided to sell the brand. We were very aggressive in acquiring. And again, the board played a very important role in saying that you have to acquire the brand. You don't try and double guess what others will come. You go all the way. Because you should not regret if you lose this brand. And we got this brand, and it has been one of the best acquisitions for us.
What will be the most relevant organizational structure? What do you believe the role, the job, the responsibility of a CEO today will need to be?
So I think this role and the responsibility of CEO has dramatically become more complex compared to the times I was a CEO, because the whole world is changing so fast. Whether it is technologies like AI or multiple technology, robotics or whatever, the impact on the business. Whether it's geopolitical developments, leadership in countries like US, and all of a sudden things are so volatile and difficult to predict that you have to be on top of what's happening in the environment. On top of that, the organization needs have increased because of cybersecurity, because of AI, digital technology, governance, DEI, sustainability. So there are a whole host of new things which have come up on the horizon, which the CEO has to take care of. The structure has to take care of that. And within the structure, of course, you can't have too many reporting relationships. So what has happened at the CXO level, the responsibilities have increased dramatically.
So Harsh Mariwala transitioning from CEO to now virtually a strategic investor, if I could call it that.
Sure.
To many others who may be considering the possibility of doing so, but perhaps haven't yet made that decision, what would you like to share? What are the 3 or 4 things that you believe they should consider and they should emulate in making that journey from CEO to strategic investor?
So I think a lot depends on the family and the owners. It cannot be for every individual, every family to become a strategic investor. In my case, I was the only person managing the business. In some cases, there may be a family member who may be fully ready to take over, and there may not be any need for a strategic investor. But wherever a promoter has stepped down or the family has stepped down from managing the business, you have to become a strategic investor, which is a little more than just investor, little more than just a board member or chairman. Of course, because your stakes are very big in the organization. So the role which I have played in terms of empowering the individuals, but a structured way of getting a grip on what is happening in the business.
You're also helping other entrepreneurs build their businesses and build their dreams through what you are doing at Accent and what you're doing at the Marico Innovation Foundation as well. What excites you about what you're seeing in India today?
I think what is most exciting is the entrepreneurial journey and the number of new entrepreneurs which have come up in India from rural areas, from non-business families, leveraging their education, with, of course, the help of all the private equity and the eco support system. To me, India's future is going to be determined by the entrepreneurs. Because up to a point, the government, you can ask them to invest in whatever infrastructure. But beyond a point, the entrepreneurs will drive the India growth story. And I think that's what is exciting, is that we are seeing such a huge action at the entrepreneurial level, so many entrepreneurs and so many students wanting to get into that. To me, I'm most excited by that.
Speaking of interesting stories, I want to end by talking about the Mariwala story itself. I mean, that was a name that your grandfather kind of took to because of what he did, his trade, which was trading in pepper. So that's how Mariwala happened, right? And that led to Marico eventually.
Yes, true.
So were you very clear when you decided to do Marico that it would be Marico?
So I had, when I had to decide the name, the consumer products business of Bombay Oil Industries was taken over by Marico. And I had to decide the name of the company. And at that time, we had 2 brands only, Parachute and Saffola. And I could have, just like Dabur had named Dabur and all the brands under there, or Colgate, or Cadbury's. I went, I said, no, I don't want to have a brand name of the company and the brand name same. So then it came to, what should be the brand name? And then if you look at Procter & Gamble, Levers, the families had family name had shifted. So that's how Marico name came in, from Mariwala.
From Mariwala, we came to Marico. And what would you like to leave behind as your legacy? I know that leaving things in perpetuity is a big part of what you believe in. What would you like your legacy to be in perpetuity?
In terms of the company or
in terms of company as well as at a personal level?
So at a company level, I would say that the company should continue to be strong and, more importantly, respected. I strongly believe that you have to earn respect from all your stakeholders and not just your shareholders. So you have to do something for each stakeholder, whether it's your own employees or whether it's society or your associate. They should say that the organization has made a difference to them. At a personal level, I also feel that I think I have to make a difference to whoever I've interacted, whether it's an entrepreneur or whether it's a mental health initiative. And I think my journey is to make a difference to others, and I would like to be remembered for that. I would say that sometimes you win, sometimes you don't lose. You always learn, So there is always failure in experimenting, but use that failure for learning, And I've seen that many times we failed, and it has applied that learnings from the failure to something else we've done in the future. That has worked wonderfully well, So don't be afraid of taking risks.
So sometimes you win and sometimes you learn. Harsh Mariwala, it has been such a learning experience for us listening to you. Thank you so much for sharing very candidly your insights with us here on the leadership language. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you very much for your time. Well, with that, it is time for us to wrap up the leadership language. From all of us here on the team, thanks very much for watching. If you enjoyed this conversation, then do visit CNBC TV 18 Access. We'll see you again next week. Goodbye. Many thanks for watching.